Hello, this is JC Zumbo of the Wolfpack Central NC State Rivals. Today has been a little bit of a surprising day. The Wolfpack has decided to move on from Coach Kevin Keats in men's basketball. He has been the coach for 8 years, reached the Final Four last year, won the ACC tournament during the Magical Ride. That was expected to buy him some time, but instead it'll be Athletic Director Boo Corrigan's first coaching search with the Wolfpack. So, I was thinking back. The last two searches, NC State has resulted obviously in Kevin Keats, and then before that, Mark Godfrey. I was under Athletic Director Debbie Yao. Now, my hunch is that this search will be more like the last one because of time. NC State has to have a coach in place for the transfer portal because they're probably going to have major renovations to the roster for next year. So to give the new coach time and the opportunity, he's going to need NIL money, and he's going to have to hit the ground running and fill out the roster and fill crucial needs. Regardless of who was coming back, NC State needed at least 2 post players, a sharpshooter on the wing, and a full-time point guard. Those were the absolute busts in the portal. Now with Coach Keats gone, it might take on a little bit of a different thing, but you still need some post players. And I think the major difference now is maybe the point guard in the Kevin Keats offense is a little different than what the new coach will do. But working back to the coaching searches. When Debbie Yao went through the Mark Godfrey search, it started off going after a lot of the big fish. Rick Barnes, Jay Wright, a little bit of Mike Bray. Josh Pastner was in the mix back then. Greg Marshall was thought of, and then as the search went on, became more of a name. Mick Cronin in the same boat. Search went on more and more. And then there was a coach who won a play-in game of all things at the NCAA tournament and just kept winning and winning, and that was Shaka Smart. So when you look back on that search, it was a little more chaotic. It was a lot of big names. I think she learned a lot of lessons from that search, which I think paid off in how she hired Dave Dorn on the football side, and then Kevin Keats in the second basketball search. The Keats search was basically Kevin Keats and Will Wade. Wade at the time was the head coach at Virginia Commonwealth. He is now the head coach at McNeese State. We'll get into Wade more in future videos, but this is where it's interesting. One big difference between the Debbie Yao search with Keats and Wade is that Mark Godfrey was fired during the season. That meant that she basically had weeks to watch these coaches coach in their conference tournaments, a little bit in the NCAA tournament, how they handled themselves in press conferences, all the background checks that you need to have in a coaching search. It was a little more zeroed in on just those two, and then it just came down to, who wanted the job. Now, I always have said Kevin Keats wanted the job badly when he was at North Carolina Wilmington. They had made the NCAA tournament multiple years in a row. They played a fun brand of basketball. It was small ball, which obviously became something he did regularly at NC State. But they wanted to press, they wanted to play fast, they fired up threes. Wade was a little more pickier. There was some chatter about whether he'd want to be at an SEC school at the time. His alma mater was Clemson. Would that job open at all with Brad Grinnell? Obviously, Brad Grinnell has done a great job since then, and it never did open. But Will Wade ended up at LSU instead. Ironically, the third guy, maybe the dark horse candidate, was Pat Kelsey. And at the time, Kelsey was at Winthrop, where he coached, eventually coached a guy that Wolfpack fans learned to love, DJ Burns. But Kelsey had just taken the UMass job and then decided to go back to Winthrop. It was interesting timing at that point in his career. He eventually became the coach at College of Charleston. Now he's done an amazing job this year at Louisville. But if you would have said there was a third choice, it might have been Kelsey. Now, one name that I didn't mention because it didn't look like he was going to be a candidate, but it was go time, last time around, is Archie Miller. Miller played at NC State. He was the prodigal son. everybody wanted to one day see Archie Miller be a head coach at NC State. The problem with the Miller situation at that time is that would Indiana or Ohio State open? And Indiana did open, and then next thing you know, that was that. Indiana gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse financially, and he took that job. Had solid success, but not Indiana level high enough success, and now he's coaching at Rhode Island. So, it just shows that a lot of coaches have moved around since even the last search that resulted in landing Kevin Keats. Kelsey went up to Charleston to Louisville. Miller went from Dayton to Indiana to Rhode Island. Now Keats will probably find a new job in the next couple of years, and I still think he has a lot of good coaching years left in him. I know that will surprise some Wolfpack fans, but he wasn't as bad as everyone wanted to make him out to be because of this ups and downs at times. But put him in the right spot. I think he'll win in the future. And then obviously Will Wade went from LSU and then had problems with the NCAA, and now is at McNeese State. So that was kind of what happened with that search. Debbie was able to get in early because of firing Gottfried in the middle or toward the end of the season, and then had the time to do what she needed to do. Now, the one difference between hiring a coach, the last two times, and now is the transfer portal. NC State has to find out which of their current players are going to move on. They have to realize what are the needs. They have to have their financials in order. The new coach is going to have to absolutely hit the ground running, because who knows how many scholarships could end up. We mentioned Pat Kelsey at Louisville. When he took the job over, he had 0 players coming back. 0. It's crazy how some rosters can get completely torn down due to a coaching change. One thing I'll leave on this note is the players that NC State has a chance to bring back. You have the 3 freshmen, Bryce Hurt, Paul McNeil, Trey Parker, all perimeter players. You have the 2 incoming signees, Ricardo Greer Jr., RJ Greer, Zamika Wilkins, nicknamed Mikey. They will take care of a post and a shooter on the wing. So that's 5 young players that the new coach could build around if he could keep the nucleus intact. Other players with eligibility left. Marcus Hill has 1 year left due to the junior college ruling. Ishmael Daouf at power forward would have at least 1 year left. Maybe he can even see if he can get a waiver with what schooling he got in Canada. Dennis Parker would have 2 years left as your small ball 4, or maybe with a new coach could end up as small forward. So there are some guys who could come back and help next year. It'll be interesting to see how that part shakes out. But, as of today, Sunday, all the NC State players can enter the transfer portal. The rule is that you get 30 days after a coaching change. So would not be surprising by Monday afternoon if somebody from the roster ends up entering the portal. But this is JC Zembel. You can see all the stuff on the Wolfpack Central, twitter.com, the NC State Rivals, and lots of other cool things besides, on the socials. And we'll keep doing these videos on a kind of daily basis until NC State finds a new coach. Thanks.